If you need an iPad that can cover all the essentials, browsing the web, some streaming, and some other basic applications, then the iPad A16 probably sounds like a great option for you. But is this truly a balanced iPad, or will you quickly hit its limitations? In this video, we talk about all the features of the iPad 11th generation to help you decide if this is the essential iPad for you, or if you need to look for one that has more features than the A16. So when I first got this iPad out and set it up, I realized it looks exactly like the iPad Air M3, and it feels almost exactly the same as well. The screen quality on it is great. It's one of the liquid retina displays. It hits 500 nits of brightness, which is going to be more than enough for most indoor use. But it's not going to be quite as bright as if you go all the way up to the iPad Pro model, and it lacks some of the anti-reflective coating features that the more advanced iPads like the iPad Air and the iPad Pro have. I really didn't notice that whenever I was using it by itself, but whenever I compared it side by side to my iPad Air M3, that's when I could tell the display on the iPad Air M3 is just a little bit more vibrant, and it also supports the sRGB color space on the iPad A16, but again, the one on the iPad Air is just a little bit more vivid and a little bit brighter. But I've been testing this a lot, watching TV, watching YouTube videos, listening to a lot of music, and it sounds and looks great. This thing is so lightweight and portable, and it's just a fantastic overall iPad experience. It has the stereo speakers on it. They sound pretty good, but they're not going to sound quite as good as speakers that are on a MacBook Air. Or if you would just use this with your AirPods, then you're really going to be impressed with the sound that you get out of the AirPods versus just using the iPad speakers that are built in. That's also just another area where if you go for the nicer iPads, you don't necessarily realize how good those speakers sound until you compare it to the ones on the basic iPad. They're just not quite as high of quality. The A16 also does have the landscape center stage camera, which is great if you're going to use this for FaceTime, whether you want to prop it up on a desk or use it with a keyboard stand or something like that. Here's a test of the front camera on the 11th generation iPad so you can get an idea of what it'll look like and sound like for most basic video calls. We've just got one light going off to the side. So this makes a great video conferencing iPad, and I really love using this beside my laptop, so I can use this as my main video camera and then use the computer as more of a note-taking device. Another thing about this is it just has one single camera on the back of it, which to me is just fine because I don't really use an iPad as a camera or need all the fancy cameras that the iPad Pro has. Another thing about it, you do get the Touch ID button, which the iPad Air also has, and the Touch ID on this works very fast. It's great. You also have USB-C on the back, which is just fantastic that Apple's finally updated their whole lineup to all use USB-C. In the box, you do also get the 20-watt USB power adapter and one of their nice little USB braided cables, which this one's really not as long as I would like it to be. I have some other USB cables and also power banks I really recommend. I'll have links for my favorite iPad accessories in the description below. I've been using this to watch videos on YouTube, to watch the NBA playoffs and some TV shows, and also just to stream music on this, and it does a really great job at handling all of those tasks. I like that you can have pretty good sound and pretty good screen quality just in this nice all-around lightweight tablet. Where I did notice a couple issues with this is I wish that the screen could get a little bit brighter if you're using it in a very bright room, or also if you're taking it outside, then the 500 nits of screen brightness can feel a tad bit limiting at times. But even right now, you can tell the screen brightness on this still gets pretty bright for most use cases. I also did really like the size of this. It's just so lightweight, comfortable to use whenever you're just browsing the web on it, and you can always use it with the Magic Keyboard Folio, or you can also pair it with Bluetooth keyboard and mouse if you want to add more functionality to it. It also supports things like the split view if you want to have multiple windows open on the same time, but it doesn't allow you to use Stage Manager or the same level of multitasking as the nicer iPads. Honestly, this iPad has all the essentials that are going to be everything that most people need. You can watch videos on the internet, you can find recipes, you can stream, you can browse the web. This does everything that you would need an iPad to do with all the latest Apple features, and it comes in a couple of different fun colors as well. I, of course, had to buy the boring silver, but you can also get it in a pink, a yellow, or a blue color too if you prefer those, and the front of all of them is going to be black. I did find it's supposed to have a fingerprint resistant coating on it, but for me it still didn't do a great job at keeping fingerprints off. I had to be cleaning it constantly, so just know if you don't like fingerprints, be ready to keep your screen clean. Let's talk processing power. I would say the iPad A16 is really aimed for the user who doesn't know or care about the differences in processing power and RAM. It has 6 gigabytes of processing power and it has an A16 chip in it, which is going to be more in line with the iPhone chips and not going to be as powerful as, say, the M3 iPad Air, which is actually using basically a computer grade processor and chip. And the iPad Air also has the media engine, which is going to make it do a better job at exporting and rendering videos, which again, most people who buy this iPad aren't even going to do. It is important to note that the iPad A16 will not support Apple Intelligence features due to the limited power of the A16 chip. you'll have to go up to the iPad Air M3 if you want to get those features. It does have the USB-C port on it, but the USB port does top out at 480 megabits a second, and it's not going to be the full 10 gigabit port that the iPad Air has or a Thunderbolt port that the iPad Pro has. But this is still going to be plenty fast if you want to plug an SSD or a flash drive in to copy pictures or files back and forth. This one does come in capacities of 128, 256, or 512 gigabytes. I recommend most people just stick with the 128 and use the cloud to store all your photos or your notes or other documents that you're going to run on this. If you're into drawing or using the Apple Pencil, then this supports either the Apple Pencil with USB-C, or it also supports the original Apple Pencil if you use the Lightning to USB-C adapter. So I really recommend just get the Apple Pencil with USB-C, but that is going to add about $90 or $100 to the price of this, which starts to push it up a little bit. The other main accessory that this supports is the Apple Magic Keyboard Folio, which I have really been enjoying. I do prefer the actual Apple Magic Keyboard that the iPad Pro and the iPad Air models use, but this one has the smart connector on the bottom of it, so you actually just magnetically attach the Smart Keyboard Folio. It works great, it gives you great typing performance, but you will probably prefer to use it on some sort of solid surface because there's a kickstand on the back of it that is going to need a little bit of support. The Magic Keyboard Folio does go for about $250, so if you start to add accessories to the iPad, then you're really getting away from the lower base model price that this is able to offer. The iPad A16 starts at $350 for the 128 gigabyte size. If you want to get the cellular antenna, you're going to have to add an extra $150. I have seen this all the way down to $300 recently, which I feel like is a great price to get all the features that this includes. So who is the iPad A16 for? This is for you if you're just looking for a basic iPad that does a really good job at handling pretty much any task that you throw at it, especially if you're going to do a lot of streaming, looking up recipes, watching videos, watching TV shows. If you want to use this with AirPods, this is also going to be a great option because the sound quality out of the AirPods is so good and will really elevate one of the weakest parts of the iPad. But I really like it because it does everything you need it to while not running quite as expensive as some of the more advanced iPads. I really say that for most people, you should just get this iPad, don't get the iPad Air, because the iPad Air is really going to be for the user who wants to do more multitasking, or if you actually want to start to push the limits of it and run it a little bit more like a computer. But most people are really just using the iPad as an iPad to browse the web, to stream videos, and it does a great job at handling all those different things. I really only recommend going all the way up to the iPad Air or the iPad Pro if you really want to use it more as a computer, or if you're looking into doing heavy multitasking. That's when you should consider buying something else instead. But otherwise, for the price, with all the features this has, the iPad A16 is a fantastic option that's going to do everything you need it. If you're interested in buying the iPad A16, I do have links to buy in the description below. If you got any other questions about it or you think I'm wrong, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear them. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content.